Welcome to Extra Takes, hosted by Northland Church Senior Pastor Dr. Joshua Laxton. Join us each week as Pastor Josh reveals the rest of the story behind his sermons. We'll discuss how those who follow Christ can live out a biblical vision for the church in our world today.
Well, hello, Northland family and friends. Welcome to another episode of Extra Takes. I'm your co-host, PJ, along with Matteo Shiles. Shiles.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's Proverbs. I watch this. This is on like TikTok and even on my Instagram reels. Sometimes there's this guy who teaches the nuances or the crazy nuances of the English language. Like an example is like love, and so his student would say love, and then he's like, well, how would you pronounce this if I added a C? And it would be club, and he'd be like, no. And so anyways, so it's Proverbs. It's Shiles.
I think you showed me one of those videos.
It is. It's funny. It's like how the English language, like who created the English language.
Is that what we're talking about today?
No.
Oh, okay.
But welcome.
We're glad you're here.
Absolutely. We did start a new series this past week.
Yeah, I think the conversation's going to be good. You're a little punchy today.
Oh, Emma?
Seems like it.
I'm probably on fumes because it's Monday.
Yeah.
Even though this comes out every Wednesday, but I had a very long weekend, a good weekend. But we had New to Northland, so I stayed over for New to Northland, and then we had our Made for Mission. We had a little over 20 for our membership class, and so that was good. So we did that from 5 to 8, and so I woke up though, went for a walk. Took Mater for a walk, prepared for a staff meeting, had a 4-hour staff meeting because we do that at the beginning of each month. And so, and then now I'm here. So, I may be a little punchy. So
that makes for a better conversation.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, so we started a new series, Word to the Wannabe Wise. We're going to be doing 4 weeks in Proverbs. Yep. I think it'll be good.
It's what I actually call a filler series. And filler is not supposed to be negative, but
it sounds negative.
But it's something you can always go back to. You know, word to the one who be wise. Like, so if Proverbs is written to those who want to be wise, whenever, like, if you're like looking for something to fill a gap of 3 or 4 weeks, it could always be a series that you go back to
in the future.
Hey, let's look at some more Proverbs, as opposed to just taking Proverbs as an anchor series. Because again, how I look at a yearly preaching plan is, okay, what are the anchor series going to be, and then what are these shorter kind of series that some of them be more filler, but they're topical or thematic. And this is actually a good one where Proverbs, it doesn't necessarily have like a storyline to it. It's just a bunch of principles of life, and so you might be reading principles about this, and then it skips over to principles about this topic. And you're like, sure. There's no, but they're just principles. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, and that's helpful to understand, obviously, in 4 weeks, this isn't going to be comprehensive. No. And it's not meant to be. It's not meant to cover, beginning to end. Yeah. And it is, it's interesting that there's an opportunity for us to go back to it.
Yeah.
Is there any plans you have in your mind when we might go back to that? 26 or 7? Or?
I don't know. Yeah, and honestly, I don't know. I actually want to do a series. Like, I really wanted to do a series entitled "Donkeys of the Bible" right now, but I didn't want people to think that I was saying, because it was not meant to be at all. But some person out there was like, "Oh, I knew it," and I'm like, "No, But there's actually several stories in the Bible where donkeys,
So Balaam's donkey, Jesus riding on the colt.
Okay.
Right? You've mentioned this to me before. There's probably 4.
Then you have Saul.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
He's chasing donkeys. It's actually when I say a fun passage for me.
Okay.
Because he's going to go chase donkeys, but he's going to find out that God's going to call him to be king.
Wow.
And so, anywho.
So is that just 3?
There could be there is a fourth, and I can't remember the fourth. Okay. I mean now there is a cartoon from the Nativity. I think it's called the Nativity. It's a cartoon where where Mary rides on the donkey. And he's So, but I don't see that. I don't think that's necessarily scriptural.
Yeah.
So it's just a fun little story.
Interesting.
So anywho, but that's why we did Word to the Want to Be Wise, because we want to be wise, but I felt like it was a lighter series after the heavy series of Letters to His Church. Mm-hmm. So that's why we went with
And
Proverbs.
This is going to take us up to
Christmas.
Yeah.
And then Christmas will be breaking the silence, and we're going to look at all of the places in the Bible where God broke silence. And look at what's surrounding him breaking silence. Like, what is he doing? Like, when he begins to speak after silence, after a period of silence, what's he doing? And then we'll see how Jesus' birth actually fulfills all of the times that God had broke the silence earlier.
Awesome.
So I'm going to connect some dots.
Awesome.
We'll play Connect the Dots. I like playing Connect the Dots in the Bible. It's actually fun.
You do that quite often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and honestly, that's one of the helpful things that people like about your preaching is you're constantly helping us connect dots, and even if you're maybe connecting the same dots, you're connecting them in different ways.
Yeah.
To allow us to understand. I mean, how often do you go back to Genesis 1, 2, and 3? But those dots are being connected in different ways, and we're able to understand it.
Yeah. Well, I'm just like, if Paul connected the dots, I'm not better than Paul.
You're not?
Nope.
Good.
Not smarter than Paul.
Good.
I'm more fashionable than Paul.
Can we talk about that? So you don't think he had your
so this is so funny. So if you're listening on Spotify, you're not going to see it, or on app, or on iTunes. But I have some new kicks. Now the reason why I'm showing you these new kicks is because these aren't new. These are actually hand-me-downs, and these are hand-me-downs from my 13-year-old.
No.
Yes, his foot has outgrown these shoes.
No.
And so he handed them to me yesterday. And
wait, they look nice.
He's never really worn them.
He kept good care of them.
Yeah. So
did he crease them or
No, he was always worried about creasing them, but no. So that's the first. My youngest, my 13-year-old Lukey.
Wow.
Gave me. He's like, Dad, here, these probably fit you. Stinker is 13 years old in 7th grade, already has a bigger foot than me.
It's a sad day, but a happy day.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, listen, these are nice. I would have never bought these colors, but hey, I'll wear them.
So you're more fashionable than Paul. Who knew?
Yeah, who knew?
All right, let's get into this week. Word to the Want to Be Wise. We were in Proverbs 1 through 7. This was November 2nd and 3rd. So you started out by giving us a question: what kind of person do you want to be? Which I thought was interesting. Do you want to be kind? Do you want to be compassionate? Do you want to be patient? I think we all strive to answer that question, whether we're conscious about it or not. And you said, hey, if we want to be a wise person, we wouldn't have to worry about all those other things. So you gave us the main point, said it 3 different ways. The first is the aim of our all determines the wholeness of our ways. Another way is what mesmerizes us moves us. And finally, the object of our wonder directs the obedience of our ways. What was your favorite of those 3?
Oh, I don't know. I would say that the very first one that came to my mind, and again, I had... The way I develop messages, I'm thinking about it months before I even come to the passage. And so the aim of our all determines the wholeness of our ways was the very first one that I wrote. And I'm like, I actually like it, but let me see if I can think of some others that, again, they're catchy, they're alliterative, right? Aim, all, wholeness, ways. And so that was the first one that I wrote, and I'm like, I probably need to specify that a little bit because the aim of our all. So I'm thinking about like whatever brings all. That's where your eyes are going to be fixated, right? Whatever brings amazement in your life, you're actually going to be fixated on that thing. So that's what I was really trying to get at with the aim of our all. So wherever our gaze is fixed, that actually is going to determine the wholeness of our ways. Which is why this is where if the aim of your all is directed to yourself, you're going to be jacked up. I mean, in terms of the wholeness of your ways, yeah, you will be whole in the sense of it will impact every area of your life, but it will be so fragmented, it won't make sense.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, if you really want to be whole, if you really want to move in a healthy direction, if you want to have the ways be obedient, you need to make sure your eyes are fixated on the wisest thing. Now, what's the wisest thing is actually a who, and it's the Lord, because that's where I'm like, if you can focus on Him, then but let's just say you want to start with, I want to be a kind person, I want to be a generous person. But if you focus on Him and He's the object of your wonder, He's the aim of your all, He is who mesmerizes you, then you actually will begin to move in His ways. And when you move in His ways, you're actually going to move in wisdom. And if you move in wisdom, I don't think you have to worry about being generous. And that's what Proverbs even talks about: generosity, kind, compassionate, discerning, like all these things. And so that's where I'm like, you don't have to worry about. And I think sometimes, because I'm a list guy, like I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, which means I'm an achiever. Well, you can carry around 3 pages of a checklist, but if you could find commonalities of whatever's in your checklist, and you can condense it down into one checklist, and that if you can check this box, but in checking this box you check 10 others, why wouldn't you do that?
Sure.
Right? And so that's kind of where, listen, if you can check the box of wisdom, I can promise you, based upon Proverbs and really other parts of the scriptures, if you can just check off wisdom, you actually check off a lot of other boxes. That's what I was trying to get at.
That's great. Yeah, I love the focus on the word all. I love the focus on the word wholeness. The second one to me jumped out, clear, concise, and it really, what mesmerizes us moves us. And I think that reminds me of our phones and our screens, and how so often it mesmerizes us, and it just causes me to ask the question then, when that is happening, what direction am I moving in? We are being moved by it. We are being moved in a direction.
Yeah.
What direction are we being moved in?
Yeah.
I do think that you saying it 3 different ways was very helpful, because they seem similar enough, but they actually seem pretty distinct. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
So the outline, we had 5 questions and answers. The first question is, where does wisdom come from? Second is, what is wisdom? Third is, why do we need wisdom? Fourth is, how do we get wisdom? And finally, what happens when we get it? Happens when we get wisdom. So we kind of already talked a little bit about where does wisdom come from. I wanted to start off with this second one. What is wisdom? There was a lot there. You had said wisdom isn't as simple as it seems, and you talked about how Solomon was building the elements of wisdom. You gave us a couple things there. Gave us this whole list of all the elements: the instruction and understanding, prudence, right and just, maturation, listening more, talking less. You like that one? Posture of humility. Discernment, solving mysteries and heart problems. And then you gave us a definition of wisdom, and then how it related and applied to our life. What I appreciated was this definition of wisdom. Wisdom is the tool by which the functionality and flourishing of creation happens. And that's where, when you say the tool, it's helpful to understand the totality of what you're describing as wisdom, right? So wisdom isn't just this singular tool, but it's all of these things combined, and it has a purpose. and that purpose is flourishing. And it's kind of to your point, right? It's the one big bucket that helps, point us in that direction of flourishing. I mean, who doesn't want that in life? Who isn't after that? We all are. So I just thought taking all of those together was a helpful, but also just a challenging thing, because what you illustrated for us is it's way more complex than maybe we might think on the surface.
Yeah, it is. In Proverbs 9, Solomon writes, "Wisdom has built her house. She has set up its 7 pillars." I mean, now, is that 7 pillars of wisdom? I don't know. I'm looking at this list of what I just saw in chapter 1. I mean, if you moved posture of humility and listening more, talking less in 1, and in some sense eliminated solved mysteries and hard problems, because if you have wisdom, you're able to do that. You're at 7 there. So instruction, understanding, prudence, right, and just maturation, a posture of humility / listening more, talking less, and discernment. That's 7 right there. And so, again, I've not even really thought deep. Well, I haven't even thought that deep just yet. I just knew that when you're just looking at Proverbs 1, and then obviously I've read Proverbs. There was a time there where I would read Proverbs every year, for a whole month, because there's 31 Proverbs, and so I know that wisdom is more complex than what we make it out to be, as if, oh, you were wise, and we know exactly. But wisdom is this combination. And so I think Solomon's getting at that when he's right. Wisdom has built her house. And you think about how complex and all of the different features and elements that a house needs to actually be built and constructed, and then she's set up its 7 pillars. I think that's really important, because it does go back to this idea of the complexity of wisdom, that it isn't as simple as we want to make it out to be, that you do have to do some work to be wise, and that it doesn't come natural, which we'll talk about that, but to really look at it in practice. I mean, I definitely think that this wisdom's this chapter where it unpacks wisdom's call, and that's what the title of chapter 8 is, that you actually see wisdom in action, but you see it from the mind and the heart of God. There are some scholars that would say that wisdom personifies either the Spirit or Jesus. But at the end of the day, wisdom is is personified here into this mind that God has in being able to bring about creation, and not only the functionality, but the flourishing of creation. And so when you think about the details and the nuances of what had to exist in God's mind to bring creation into existence, that's deep.
Yeah. There's a whole nother dimension when you were reading through that. Just this idea of, wisdom was there from the beginning. Obviously, we know that, but you reading through that scripture, I think helped to elevate again the importance of it, but also the complexity of it.
Yeah,
for us. Yeah. And you said, how does wisdom apply to our life? Wisdom is practically living out God's image and likeness in how we relate, create, and operate. So you then tie to what you so often talk about in Genesis 1:28. By the way, I used that. So I taught in Perspectives, Lesson 12, Christian Community Development.
Yeah.
And we talk about poverty. And we have this diagram of God, self, others, and rest of creation. We talk about how if there's brokenness in any of those, we can experience poverty. So I actually used that diagram. I added it because I said if we experience brokenness in any of those, we can experience poverty as well.
Yeah.
So,
well, let me so wisdom. Let me give you an example of how wisdom looks like in action, just from some of the themes that you just brought up in like poverty, But I'll give a kind of another example in this, but. Many people talk about creating a culture of generosity for God's people. Okay, yes, we want people to give generously. Okay, but we don't. But sometimes we don't think that generosity is also is created through this sphere called create.
Right.
Okay, so you got culture and civilization.
We think it's just here.
It's just there. I mean, but generosity in terms of as a bucket, it's as how you operate, it's how you steward your money.
Yeah.
But it's also how you consume what is created. So if we're living in a culture with high inflation and rising home prices or apartment prices, well, it actually, you can still be generous, but it cuts down on your ability and the amount that you're able to give.
Sure.
Because again, so think about it. Like in 2022, if home prices, in 2022 home prices weren't down, but because I moved in 2022, home prices was not down here in Orlando.
Yeah.
But if you are in a day and age where home prices are down, interest rates are down, okay, then you're giving generously there. But okay, let's say a year or two go by, you haven't gotten a raise, right? But now home prices are going up, interest rates are going up. Well, then okay, where does that money go? Then? But you got to think through. All right, how do I one, maintain generosity and the level of generosity? What maybe do I need to cut? And then here's what I've actually shared with people now, that if we're looking at the next generation of Gen Z and the Alpha generation, and we want them to be able to give generously in a manner that actually makes a significant impact, we're also going to have to think about what they're going to be consuming from a home standpoint, from an apartment standpoint. And can the church think deeply, wisely through the creation of other entities, whether it is apartments, micro homes, affordable housing, so that we're creating the conditions for people to be generous. So it's not just so wisdom is not just telling people how to be generous, but it's also seeing the pattern of where our culture is going and how much it costs just to consume things and buy things, and go, is there a way that we can contribute to the functionality and flourishing of just generosity? Like, that's just an example of thinking wisely about certain things.
Yeah, and that's why, I think this diagram, again, is so helpful because, it has the three areas: relate, create, and operate, that we've seen a lot. But just having all of these other pieces, as you went through them, just in relate, the way we relate to God, self, marriage, family, friends. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
There is enough there to keep us busy. I mean, if we have any sort of doubt of why we need wisdom, we just have to go down that list and say, yep, absolutely. There's a deficiency that I have in this area. God, please give me wisdom, right? So this diagram was so very helpful because it's one that we had seen before, but like you were saying, we connecting the dots, and it was a way for you saying, hey, this is how you practically live it out, and really this is why wisdom is so very important in our day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Not in not on the pie in the sky thinking about it theory, but like really, how does it apply to my work life on Monday? How does it apply to the hobbies that I create? How does it apply to my time, talents, and treasures?
Yeah. Well, so in the Laxton family, Luke, and he's like, you called me out. And I'm like, I didn't say it by name, but now I can say him by name. So Luke's 13, and he wants an Instagram account.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm like, okay, why do you want an Instagram account? But this is kind of where, when you look at so a smartphone is something that has been created. It's part of culture. It's a cultural, what they call is a cultural artifact. It has been created. Yeah. Okay, what's the purpose of a smartphone? Then then Instagram is a cultural artifact that has been created. It's a digital space within a device. And so that's a cultural artifact. So why does Instagram exist? And then, all right, Luke, why do you want Instagram? And then how often should we? So we haven't given him Instagram just yet. We're still talking through it, and again, thinking deeply. But here's some other things that we know, though, in our culture. There's data on smartphones. There's data on screen time. There's data on what too much screen time does, and all of it. So that's actually, when you look at what wisdom is, it's instruction, understanding, prudence, maturation, the process of the simple and young growing and becoming more experienced and successful. And that's also learning, by collecting data, learning from other people's experience. And so wisdom in just the realm of a family, because again, it talks about how I relate as a dad, and Joni as a mom too, a teenager who wants something, whose friends have these things, and definitely whose older siblings have these things. And so we're trying to figure out what's the wisest thing to do. And this is where I don't believe that there's a black and white issue. Yeah. I believe it's a gray issue, and that's where wisdom plays an essential role there. And you're having to take all of these elements, and you're having to construct the house of wisdom in just the realm of a smartphone, and then even a time frame. So, we have time allotments for our kids, and so once they hit the time, allotment, now they can request more time. And so, Joni's a little bit more generous than I am. I just ignore the time, request, sometimes on purpose.
Then you get a text,
and then hey Dad, I need more time. But anyways, that's an element of just something that we are dealing with right now. Sure. And then when when you look at, I gave a whole list of knowing what to speak when you need to speak. That's even on Facebook or social media. So I got a message from someone like, how do I know the right thing to say? On Facebook. And actually, I wrote an article. I didn't even and I wrote an article. This is, I don't know, about a year or so ago, about should people leave a review of a church? And I think I can use even the framework that I asked there, about making a wise decision about what we post. Okay, why are you really wanting to post that? What is your hopeful outcome? Are you saying it well, or are you poking the bear? There's a lot of things that, if you really want to know whether or not what you're posting is healthy, you need to ask some questions, because in some sense, this is where your heart can in some sense be big and your head be small, or you can be too smart for your own good, and you're like, and so wisdom, and that's where I love, wisdom. I never thought of it this way, in all honesty, is wisdom is right sizing your heart and head in a way that is aligning both of them.
Wow.
So those are things, like, how do you deal? And this is where, when you look at, work, I can tell you, business owners would love for their frontline employees to be wise. And how do I handle in a peaceful manner irate customers in a way that diffuses as opposed to escalates things, especially in a day and age where people are looking for a reason to escalate things. But wisdom helps really diffuse as opposed to inflame. There's so many things. Like, I did mention emotional intelligence, because I think emotional intelligence is almost like this subset of wisdom. Is how you're applying wisdom to yourself. Of what makes you joyful, what makes you sad, what makes you angry. Because if you can find out what makes you angry, what triggers you, what sets you off, then you have to figure out, okay, how do I manage that? Because part of figuring out how to manage your anger so that you're not set off is wisdom. And here's, I didn't say this, but I can say this now in the Extra Takes podcast. If you go to a counselor, a counselor, the whole reason why you go to a counselor is that they're supposed to help you process wisdom. Ultimately is what they're trying to do, or what they should be trying to do. They're trying to help you understand your feelings, your emotions, your trauma, whatever that may be, your whether it's marital issues, whether it's whatever it may be. What they're there to help you in your maturation process. They're there to help you, in some sense, instruct you, understand, prudence. I mean, they're there to help counsel, advise you. And if you are seeing a counselor, because I do think, this is why I said something, I did say this in the letters to the church, I can't remember what, but counselors that are more like the spirit of Jezebel. And I actually believe that there are a lot of quote-unquote Christian counselors that do inhibit more of the spirit of Jezebel, but also I do think that there are elements of counselors where, listen, man, if they can just keep you coming back like a drug, that's more money in their pocket. And again, I'm not saying that for every counselor, but what I am getting ready to say, though, is ultimately that counselor, whether it's a he or she, should be helping you mature in wisdom and applying instruction, implying knowledge, helping you learn from experiences, helping you understand data, helping you understand the mind of God to bring functionality and flourishing in your life. And so if you've been with a counselor for 6 months to a year and you feel like you have not made any progress in terms of wisdom applied in your life, you might want to find another counselor. Now, again, I'm saying that on extra text. I'm not going to say that on the stage, because I want people to get help. I mean, we all need coaches. We all need mentors. We all need counselors. And I would say in every kind of bucket that I just mentioned, that there is a different perspective that a coach would have, a mentor would have, a counselor would have, but they all delve into the realm of wisdom. A coach is going to help you gain wisdom because they're a little bit further along and can teach you mechanics. A mentor is further along in a particular sphere, and they can kind of mentor you, whether it's in business, whether it's in life, whether it's in parenting. But then a counselor is trying to help you untangle some things potentially that you're wrestling with, and they're going to try to advise and give you counsel, wisdom for untangling, whether it's emotions, whether it's an addiction, whether there's some strife, whether there's friction, whether, again, that's what, and so that's where I'm like, wisdom is in every sphere. And especially if you're paying somebody for something, or you're going to somebody for help, mentoring, coaching, the whole goal, hopefully, is for them to help you become wiser.
Yeah, and I think that's where I like when you said wisdom applied. Yeah. Right? Because you've said this before, good theology is applied theology. Yeah. Good wisdom is applied wisdom. Yeah. Right? It's not just about head knowledge, but it's about, it goes back to our main point about our movement, right? Us pointing in the right direction and moving forward. So good wisdom is wisdom applied. So let's look at point 3. You said we are fools by our very nature. So that's not a fun point.
Well, that's where, it's so funny, because I love this quote. Just looking at this quote, I love this quote because, Forbes is a very respectable publication, and so this is a person who has a PhD, but there are plenty of reasons you need wisdom, and the first reasons are happiness and fulfillment. Okay, so you need wisdom because you need to be happy and you need to be fulfilled. Okay, but have you ever asked? And then this is where I'm like, well, have you ever asked the question why we ultimately why are we even having this discussion on why we need wisdom? Yeah, is because there's something about us that is predisposed to be foolish.
Yeah. So help us understand, how can we communicate that hard truth winsomely?
Well, just ask questions. That's the thing is so if I was sitting down with Tracy Brower, PhD, hey, Tracy, all right, so, hey, listen, I like what you say here, that wise people, they also pave the way towards greater fulfillment, best way to handle everything. But what's the undercurrent there? What are you're giving us the positive, but what's the negative?
Sure.
The negative is most people don't know how to handle relationships. The negative is that most people aren't happy and fulfilled. I mean, we got a whole culture out there that has no purpose. Definitely Gen Z, no purpose, no direction. We got a bunch of people. I mean, the reason why, the political season is always super toxic and super charged is because you got half the population that isn't happy about this one thing, and the other half isn't happy about this other thing. I mean, we are not happy, fulfilled people unless we feel like we have something. And so that's kind of where I would just ask questions. And I learned this, though, through a book entitled Evangelism Made Slightly Less Difficult. And so the principle, and this is the other thing about wisdom, and this is what I love about wisdom, is that when you find these principles in other areas, there are many times these principles can also apply in a cross-disciplinary way. So that's one of the reasons why I'm learning about ecosystems and ecology. I am not a science guy.
Oh, you're not?
No, I am not a science guy. But obviously, I passed in high school and college.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Good for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, pat me on the back.
C's get degrees.
Yeah, well, did I ever get a C? In English, I got a C.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm from Tennessee. But moving right along.
So, you're blaming it on the entire state.
I'm blaming it on the entire state. So, but this is actually wisdom, is that you're able to take principles and apply them to other disciplines. So in this book I was reading, it talks about positive deconstruction.
Okay.
So if you're going to try to evangelize somebody, ask questions to get them to, in some sense, deconstruct their own premise.
Sure.
Like, if instead of just saying, standing at a street corner and telling people to turn or burn, don't know if that's really positive for a lot of people. Now, sure, over the years, over the decades, people standing on a street corner saying turn or burn, has some people come to know Jesus? Yes, I'm not going to say that no one's ever come to Jesus, from that. But is that the most effective way? Because, again, that would go to wise and winsome, is what's the best way? What's the most effective way? And so in this book, Evangelism Made Slightly Less Difficult, it really just talks about getting to know the person and what they believe, and then start asking questions about what they believe. Okay, So you believe this. Well, so how does that apply here? Okay, so this is what you believe. How does that apply to marriage? Like, what do you think about what do you think about marriage? Okay, so if you're going through a rough time, how does your faith help you get through that rough time in your marriage?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, and then if they don't know the question, then what you end up doing is showing how the premise of their own worldview or their own faith is deficient. And so they either have to think more deeply about what they believe, or then it opens up, well, can I tell you what I believe?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's where I would use that same principle with someone like Tracy.
Sure.
Is, okay, so you wrote a really good article, that there's a lot that I agree with, but help me understand that, okay, you say wise so that you can be fulfilled, but what's the flip side of that?
Yeah.
Because she knows the flip. I think, she's a PhD. I think she knows the flip side. I think she knows that most people are all walking around, dissatisfied and unhappy. And and then if you even drill down why they're dissatisfied, why they're unhappy, it's either because someone that is in charge or in authority over them has made some unwise decisions, or that they have made some unwise, unhealthy decisions, and it has affected them. Okay, and then when you look at people handling relationships or businesses, okay, we know this, and I say we know this. I mean because I like reading leadership books and business books. Business owners, they rely on the frontline people. And so if you're not training them, and then if you train them and then you find out that they don't know how to apply that training, either you're not a good trainer or they haven't listened and learned. So that has to do with wisdom. And so anyways, all that to say, I would be asking questions to get them to almost get to this point where, the reason why we need wisdom is because we are predisposed to make rash decisions, to make unwise decisions. And here's what's interesting too when you think about decision making. And I learned this years ago too. I forget where I read this in multiple sources, but I can't remember. But between the ages of middle school and college and graduating college, you're going to make some of the most important decisions of your life. Mm-hmm. You are going to make decisions of who your friends are. Mm-hmm. You're going to make decisions of where do you go to school. Mm-hmm. If you go to school like college, you're going to make decisions like what's your, in some sense, your career, your work, your vocation. You're going to make that. You're probably also, by the time you kind of graduate college, you're going to kind of know the kind of person that either you want to be with for the rest of your life. Maybe you're already engaged. Like Joni and I, we got married. She had just graduated college. I was still in college, and so you're going to make some of the most important decisions. And when you think about it, like for men. Our prefrontal, kind of cortex where we make our decisions, it's not fully formed until around 24, 25, 26. Now, women a little bit earlier, I think 21, 22, 23, something like that. And so this is why, like, I think Proverbs is so important because they didn't even have the science back then. Yeah. But what they can look at these young people and go, okay, they are predisposed to be pretty rash. They are predisposed to be pretty charged up emotionally and to make unhealthy, unwise choices that could actually destroy their life. And so what we need to do is help them understand wisdom. And so that's something that I think when you look at that third point, why do we need wisdom? But fools despise wisdom and instruction. And I'm telling you, for parents, you definitely understand this. And I don't know how many teenagers we have listening here, but let's just be honest. I mean, our 2-year-old knows best. That's why they throw the terrible 2 tantrum. They want what they want. They can't even process what's the wisest thing. They are exposing at that level early on. They know better than mom and dad, right? Mm-hmm. And then as the older they get, they may not throw the terrible 2 tantrum, but they still have some of that mindset. Well, my parents don't know jack diddly squat. I mean, I used to say that to my mom, my dad. Like, what do y'all know, you old fogies? I mean, y'all don't know. I mean, when's the last time you've been 15? Yeah, 30 years ago. I mean, like, it's like we think, but that's the that's the natural inclination that we have because it's rooted in sin, which is rooted in this idea that we know better than our authority. And in some sense, we don't trust you. Yeah.
Well, and where you then took us was the markers and characteristics of foolishness.
Oh, yeah. That's some good stuff there.
Yeah. The unraveling of order, chaos, confusion, purpose, rashness. I thought that was a great point. Most decisions I've made that are rash have not been good decisions. Oh, man. Loss of control, naivety, laziness, doing right in their own eyes. And then you ended that by saying fools build fractured worlds, fallen worlds, false reality of the world. They fail to look to the Creator.
Yeah, I mean, think about think about some of the things our culture is struggling with right now. Gender confusion, sexuality confusion. That's where I would say fools build a false reality or false realities. Is that they're constructing something in their mind that they think if I did this or if I get to choose this, then it goes back to the fulfillment, satisfaction, happiness, then I will be fulfilled. And here's what we don't we're having and this is what's fascinating, just again, larger culture, is because we're still in the early stages of this kind of confusion and building, I would say, to use this kind of framework, a false reality. Is we're seeing now these kind of early entry data where it actually is eroding healthy minds and hearts and lives. Yeah. But this is where I'm saying, if that's the case, then you got to go back to the source and going, well, did we make an unwise decision? Did something go awry there? And I would say yes, but then that's where I would go back. Here's the Bible.
Right.
Here's what the Bible teaches.
Right.
Here's what wisdom is. This is where wisdom comes from. But if you're sitting there trying to be wise in your own eyes, it never leads anywhere good. And that's where I would go back to the counselor too, that I was talking about earlier, is that many times people go to a counselor because there's some kind of unraveling of order happening. So I have an addiction, which is an unraveling of order. I can't get my life right. I keep going back to the bottle. I keep going back to the pill bottle. I keep going back, in addiction, right? And so a counselor is supposed to help you unravel the unraveling.
Yeah.
So that you can begin to put your life, allow the Lord to put your life back in order.
Yeah.
So that's why you even go to counselor, because something is unraveling. Maybe a relationship is unraveling. And so what the counselor is supposed to do in a wise, understanding, prudent way is to help you unravel the unraveling to begin to put it back to order. And that only happens in wisdom. And so, but if you continue to live in chaos and darkness and confusion, I don't know if they're helping you any. So it's either the counselor or you, or it could be a combination.
Sure.
But this is where what we're seeing, and again, we see this in the book of Proverbs, is that foolishness. It is, and I mentioned it, is fool or foolish means, and this is what the Hebrew word means, self-sufficiency and wisdom. It's the know-it-all. Also, Proverbs is going to use the word simple. Simple denotes a person who is gullible, without moral direction, and inclined to evil. There you go.
Yeah.
And so we're inclined. That's our predisposition to be simple.
Yeah.
Predisposition is to be foolish. And how do you know those things that are going on, that you're embodying those? It's all those things, those are the markers, the characteristics, the symptoms.
Well, and that's where, when we move on to point 4, how do we get wisdom? You really had a zinger for us.
Oh, I did?
You did.
Uh-oh.
You said, could it be that you aren't wise because you aren't mesmerized by him?
Yeah, that wasn't even in my notes.
Oh, it wasn't?
No.
Did you say that in every service, or
No.
just the 9?
Probably just the 9. It's not in my notes. I do extemporaneous every now and then.
Talk more about it, because that
I did say
really
something at the I did say something at the 11, because when you think about faith, exalt, acknowledge, rely, and all of that, and what I was, because I did have somebody come to me after the 5 p.m. on Saturday and says, hey, can you help me connect your main points to what you were explaining? I'm like, undoubtedly I didn't make that connection, which is one of the reasons why I love having multiple services, because the whole idea of fear is the connection to the mesmerize, is the connection to the awe, is the connection to the wonder. Like, if you have this fear of faith and exalting and acknowledgement and relying, that means you have been mesmerized. And then I said something to the effect at the 11 is like, maybe you're sitting there thinking, well, dang, that's probably why I ain't wise. Well, yeah, because you've never been mesmerized.
Well, and that's where the connection, then, what you just did was connecting that zinger of a statement. Could it be that you weren't wise because you weren't mesmerized by him? If we find ourselves that way, okay, well, what are we supposed to just feel bad about ourselves? No, you're giving us a tool. This is a way that you can fear the Lord through this acronym, right? So, like, if we find ourselves, and I think a lot of us either have or are currently feeling that way, right, that we aren't mesmerized by him. And honestly, I would say wisdom is probably saying, even if we are mesmerized by him, saying we still aren't fully mesmerized by him as much as we could be. Like, I think Paul would probably say that.
Well, you're going. I mean,
it's an ongoing.
Yeah, you're
process,
journeying in the depths of. Is the word is there such a word as mesmerization? I don't know.
No, but you just made it up.
There we go. But
like memorization, but I think that's part of it. Is like wisdom is saying, like, we haven't fully arrived, and like there is more for us to learn about the depths of who God is.
That is it. I mean, because I know when I preached a series on the backstory of generosity, and I was talking about diving into really the mind of God. When you think about God is the master botanist, God is the master zoologist, God's the master engineer, astrologer, like because every system that He created, I mean, there is a depth of knowledge that we haven't even scratched the surface, and that's where even science today because Genesis is not a science book. It's not like it's going to teach you the science dynamics, but as we have a culture that is diving into the depths of science and knowledge, what we really truly are exploring is the depths of the wisdom of God.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where the more that we know Him and the more that we want to be wise in Him, the more we will be mesmerized by Him. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think of that.
And that's where I think that acronym is so helpful, right? It gives us something practical to look at. The faith, the exalt, the acknowledge, the rely.
Yeah.
So as we find ourselves deficient and are recognizing that we are deficient in that area, instead of us just wallowing in it, right? We can look at that acronym, and then obviously we can dig into Proverbs.
Well, and the key to that acronym, though, is it just gets the ball rolling.
Oh, really?
Because the fear of the Lord is just the beginning of knowledge. It's just again, that's where I was saying it's just one of the elements of wisdom. So like, I mean, so that's where like if you're not even mesmerized by Him, you're like you don't even have the knowledge to even get things started towards wisdom.
Right. Oh man. So that just starts us.
Which is why, like, I mean, that's why I, try to say it in a kind of a fun way. Like, maybe you're sitting there going, well, dang, that ain't why I ain't wise. Well, yeah, that probably you don't even have the prerequisite towards wisdom.
Yeah, when I started saying in my early and mid 30s that, man, in my late 20s I came to the realization that I knew less than I did in my early 20s. And it was just this like aha that like the more I grow, the more I realize how much I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's part of it.
Well, and that's where the staff knows this about me, particularly the executive staff. And maybe I've said this before on Extra Takes, but when I was in my PhD studies, I wrote a paper one time and I was using this definitive article, the, this is the way. And then I'm talking about like my professor hammered me. I mean, bled all over my paper and would write things. I actually have it in my office. Like I would need to pull it out. But how do you know this? How do you know this? Where's the research? I mean, and I'm like, oh, snap. Like, and so we are, and this goes back to we're predisposed to think that we know it all. And so that our opinions become the definitive opinion. And so what I've told our staff is that, listen, I'm okay with you disagreeing. I'm okay with you giving your opinions when we throw out questions. Mm-hmm. I'm not okay with anybody going, this is the only way without even backing it up. Because I'm going to hammer you and I'm going to ask you questions. I mean, I'm going to ask you question after question. How do you know? Well, what about this? Because that's part of wisdom, because I feel like I am pretty well read. Now, that doesn't mean I'm an expert in everything, but I'm pretty well read so that I can connect with people so that I know kind of what's going on. I know what the temperature is. And so, I mean, I'm going to hammer somebody if they come to the table and go, this is the only way. I'm like, well, how do you know this is the only way? I can give you five other examples where we're doing it, where somebody else is doing it differently. Yeah. And so all of that, all that said is that wisdom, the fear of the Lord is this beginning of knowledge, understanding that you need Him for everything. Yeah. And that He is the one, He's the center, He's the anchor of your life by which your relationships, your creation, your vocation, your career, your recreation, your hobbies, your time, your talents, your treasures orbit around Him. Yeah. And so that's the idea of faith and the exaltation, acknowledgement, and relying, because when you do that, that's where humility comes in. You just don't, you may not know. Now, again, when I or other Christians say, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. We're saying that because Jesus said that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he's like the way, the truth, the life.
Yeah.
So, we're going to be definitive on the things that Jesus was definitive on.
Yeah, good point.
But, that goes back to the technical versus adaptive challenges.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, let's look at that final point 5. And you said, what happens when we get wisdom? We talked about discerning right and wrong, avoiding traps and snares, experience blessing and satisfaction, become stable and secure, demonstrate integrity, honesty, and trustworthiness, and respect the life of God in all spheres of life. Where do you want to go there? Because there's a couple pieces there, but
I don't know. You were listening to it. Where do you want to go?
Proverbs 31.
You want to go to Proverbs 31?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Oh, I love Proverbs 31. Because I feel like it's a complete picture of taking everything that we just kind of talked about in the message and actually seeing it in a person.
Yeah.
And again, like before Proverbs 31, like the chessboard, I think that really is important because if you can start viewing your life and your decision making from a chessboard perspective, and again, if you don't know chess, I mean this, like, just learn the moves of chess, because when you learn, and I don't even know all of the variations of the moves, like, because I'm not an expert, but I know how to play chess, and I know that the pawn can be moved one space or 2 spaces. It cannot be moved to the side, but then all of your bottom pieces, the bishop, the rook. Yeah, I was thinking of the card game, the rook. But yeah, you got the bishop, the rook, you got the knight, you got the king, you got the queen. Yep. There's so many different variations, but chess is a game of strategy.
Yeah.
And what wisdom is, it really is a game. Wisdom is, when I say a strategic notion in most areas of life, where you're assembling instruction and understanding, prudence, discernment, maturation, listening.
Yeah.
You're assembling all of these elements, and you strategically are using them to make the wisest and best decision that you possibly can. That's wisdom in action. And so just the chessboard helps, hopefully, you think, man, and again, like, how many people, okay, when you're looking for a mate, are you playing checkers or chess?
Yeah, that's a good point.
When you're parenting, are you playing checkers or chess?
Yeah.
In business and leading business, are you playing checkers or chess? Those are them, because chess helps you think just a little bit more. It makes you think a little, makes you think deeply, or more deeply about certain things in life versus just that quick thing. And so that's just something I just wanted to touch base on real quick.
We've got to play chess.
Yeah,
we got to play.
Oh, well, you probably will beat me. Caleb beats me, so
I've tried to play Gus. I brought in because he was on the chess club in high school. And
is he a little Bobby Fischer?
Well, I brought him this was years ago, but I brought him my little set or whatever so he could practice. That sucker had that for like months, and he would never play me. I wasn't ready. Never got ready.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So you got to try to
play. I'll play. All right, so going, just kind of ending with Proverbs 31 and the wife of noble character. She is worth far more than rubies. Again, because this is where you go back to a point where that there's satisfaction and blessing in wisdom. So she's worth far more than silver, rubies. Why? Because she brings blessing and satisfaction with her. And then her husband has full confidence in her. He's secure in her. Lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm. She's like merchant ships bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it's still night and provides food for her family. This is all over here in create. She's working, to be able to provide, and she's working in a way that's full of wisdom. She considers a field and buys it. Okay, is this the right field? Is this the right price of the field? Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. So she not only knows how to buy a field, but there's even now more, so that she She can even plant a vineyard.
Yeah.
I mean, so she now knows how to steward her money in a wise manner. She sees that her trading is profitable. I mean, so here's the thing, like, just because we are Christians doesn't mean that we don't look at the bottom line.
Yeah.
Like I was talking to a group of people today and go, the church is not supposed to let other people make it and them lose it. So, I was like, we cannot let them we cannot let another organization expand on our dime. Like, because there is an element of wisdom of the profitability of even decisions we would make as Christians. Yeah. I do tell people you can give everything away to the point where you have nothing to give away.
Yeah.
So, and I don't, and what we see even here is that she considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. And then she sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her task. I mean, like this is an amazing woman. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hand to the needy.
Yeah.
I mean, again, she's exhibiting generosity.
Yeah.
But she could, but part of her generosity is wisdom in how she worked the field, how she made a profit. So she makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gate. She can laugh at even the days to come because, listen, I mean, there is so much security with what she has done in embodying wisdom. And that's where she speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. Wow. She watches over the affairs of her household, does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed. So how she relates, I mean, even how she relates to her children rise and go, Mom, I love you. Goodness. Like, you take care of us the way you are. Like, unbelievable. And then that's where I love where we read in verse 30, charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting. So people can have this charm about them that is very deceptive, and then beauty can be fleeting. Like, hey, beauty might last for a season, but you might age and that beauty fades. But a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. So think about that, kind of that acronym, faith, exalt, acknowledge, rely. That idea of exalt. So, and Proverbs teaches this, that the humble, God exalts the humble, but he humbles the proud. So here's a woman who has humbled herself in fearing the Lord, and what has God done? He has exalted her, and she's praised now. And then honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gates. That what God is saying through Solomon is that the person who exhibits the wisdom that comes from the Lord, they're the ones who are praised at the city gates.
Amen.
They're the ones that are praised at the city gates.
Yeah.
They're the ones where people go, I actually want to be like them.
Wow.
I need them in my life. They make my life better. Because again, it goes back to wisdom. Wisdom allows functionality and flourishing to take place. And when you are around a wise person, your life becomes better. Your life is more functionable, and will even exhibit glimpses of flourishing. And so we see that with the wife of a noble character, because she is full of wisdom.
Yeah, well said. Remarkable.
Well, Northland family and friends, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Extra Takes. Hey, we're going to be looking at wisdom applied to the realm of money. Money. Hey, mo money, mo problems is the famous theologian. Who sang that?
Is that
50 Cent? No.
Did he?
I don't know.
You can't owe him anymore.
Hey, well, anyways, that's what we will be looking at this coming week as we continue our series, Word to the Wannabe Wise. Blessings.
Thanks for listening to Extra Takes. Be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you won't miss a single episode.